You know, back in the day, Street Fighter 1 was kind of a myth, but now, with the internet, everybody's probably familiar with it, so you all know how much it sucks. It's amazing that someone at Capcom saw that game and said, you know what, I think this could be something great. I mean, I'm glad they did it, but I'm not sure I would have seen the potential. Would you? When they decided to team up with rival SNK, Capcom did it again and delivered a game that was just meh. I mean, it was pretty cool seeing Terry Bogard and Kyoko Sanagi facing Ryu and Ken, but something was missing. And just like with the Street Fighter series, that something came in the sequel. When Capcom vs SNK 2 was released, pretty much everyone that was into fighting games fell in love with it. In my case, for example, since I didn't have a PS2 at the time, I used to stop by a gaming store on my way back from work almost daily just to challenge the owner to a few fights. And I'm sure I'm not the only one with stories about this game, because Capcom vs SNK 2 is definitely one of the best 2D fighting games of all time, if not straight up one of the best games of all time. But it's old and time has passed. Although a lot of people would perfectly be happy with just a re-release in HD or something, it's about damn time for a new version. So, like I did with Marvel, let's see 10 reasons why we need Capcom vs SNK 3. Number 10. Lack of competition. Remember how my list of reasons for a Marvel vs Capcom 4 had a lot of things that could be improved in a possible sequel? Well, things are going to be different with Capcom vs SNK 3. I mean, CvS3 is such a masterpiece that truly one of the only real problems I could mention is, sadly, the lack of competition. Because it's an old game, most players have moved on to other things by now. And in a competitive genre like fighting games, having an attractive competitive scene is a key factor. Even if the game was simply relaunched, perhaps in HD, we could see a big improvement, but if they did more than that, like releasing a third version, the game would really attract a lot of new players. Number 9. Morrigan's sprites were an embarrassment. Well, not everything was, as Rocky would say, sunshine and rainbows with CvS2. You see, the SNK characters were all redrawn and looked absolutely fantastic, but Capcom cut corners with most of its roster, just adding the sprites from previous games. They work okay in most cases, but Morrigan really stood out like a bad CGI character in a movie. I mean, just look at this. By now though, Capcom has finally upgraded Morrigan's look by adding her to other games like Tatsunoko vs Capcom and Marvel vs Capcom 3. Number 8. Special intros. Not many people have watched my 10 reasons to like Mortal Kombat X video, but one of the things I really like about that game is the fact that there are so many special intros between the characters. That's not something Capcom usually does, with a few exceptions, but guess what? CvS2 had them, and they were awesome. So a new game with even more intros? Sign me up for it. Number 7. CvS2 didn't have an online mode. This is probably the biggest issue with CvS2, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of comments saying that they'd be perfectly okay with simply a port of the game with this functionality added. In today's world, not having an online mode is a death sentence to a fighting game, so that alone is enough reason for a sequel. Number 6. Overlapping communities. Everybody's waiting for Tekken vs Street Fighter, but Capcom's take on the franchise was, at best, subpar. I was a big defender of it, mostly because of the idea of fighting 2 vs 2, something that is very rare in fighters, but in the end, the game's faults were too big to be ignored. I'm not saying this was the only reason, or maybe not even the biggest one, but the lack of overlapping communities could have played a part on it. Tekken and Street Fighter are just too different. A lot of people either play one or the other, but not both. Sure, there are players that gladly face any challenge, but from what I've seen, the vast majority of gamers choose only one of these styles. It's different with SNK and Capcom though. Both companies produce very similar games, so the number of overlapping gamers is much bigger, thus making a crossover much more viable. So, if someone decided to produce a crossover between Street Fighter and Tekken, why not a third Capcom vs SNK? Number 5. New characters. As I said, Capcom vs SNK 2 is quite old. 2 major Street Fighter games have been released since then, not to mention many KOFs and other crossovers, so there's quite a lot of new characters in both franchises that deserve to be part of the series, not to mention old ones that failed to make the cut before. Number 4. The groove system. Just like Street Fighter Alpha 3, CvS2 allowed you to select different grooves based on Capcom or SNK's games, and they all came with its own particularities. While some of them allowed your characters to run, others only gave you quick dashes but added the option of parrying attacks. This meant that 2 people playing the same character could have very different styles, which made for a lot of diversity. Sure, some grooves were unfortunately a little better than others, but the idea was there and it was great. Imagine if in the third game it becomes much harder to decide which groove is the best one, and we end up seeing many different choices in tournaments. That would be pretty cool. Number 3. a chance to see characters from other series. We got Street Fighter V and the King of Fighters 14, but the hopes for a new Darkstalker, Samurai Shodown, Rival Schools or The Last Blade are not that great. Crossover series like this one not only allows us to see some of our favorite characters again, but are also great ways to measure public interest in a new game. Number 2. Marvel vs. Capcom 4 is unlikely. I know I defended it, but the truth is that MVC4 is not likely to happen for the foreseeable future, and that is greatly because of the whole Disney situation. Basically, they're tired of not having the movie rights for some of the best characters, so Marvel is going out of the way to fade them out of the media. Sadly, this probably includes video games, which makes it very hard for a new Marvel to be released for a while. SNK though has no such problem, so if you want a new version of a loved crossover, hoping for CvS3 is a much more realistic goal. Number 1. The True Lover Making. Seriously, this song is awesome. It's what's playing on the background of this video, and I'll even include it again at the end so you can all enjoy it. In our local tournaments, we always picked London as the stage for the finals, and the music was the main reason for it. Now imagine if instead of a small tournament featuring yours truly, this was the finals at EVO, in the main stage, between the best fighting game players from around the world. Now this is something I wanna see, or rather, hear. Okay then, those are my 10 reasons for wanting Capcom vs SNK 3 to be released as soon as possible. Let's cross our fingers for this one, cause it might just be coming in the near future. You never know.